Hello, this is Annette with Project Refine Life. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm here with a VR coffee house stacks. This is a VR to Kay and it missed the gray. And I saw this over a month ago over on Kay's channel. This is all about one of my favorite subjects, which is coffee and giving a personality or personifying your decks through coffee and coffee drinks. So I just dig this so much. So I went over to my local favorite, Pechotto Coffee here in Gilbert, Arizona. There's also another location in Chandler, which makes it perfect for me because I've got one close to my home and one close to a place that I teach. What I did is I took all of Kay's prompts and then I added one more. So now I'm going to be explaining these and I might go into a little bit more detail because if you have never checked out James Hoffmann, if you love coffee, James Hoffmann has a channel here on YouTube and he's amazing. He is an English barista and he was one of the winners of the World Barista Championship back in the mid 2000s. I've been watching his channel for a while now. I really love his channel. I sit there and watch him make coffee and talk about coffee because he's great. So anyhow, some of the explanations that I have here about the coffees and how it kind of leads into the deck are from one of his videos that I will go ahead and post in the description box below. First, the Espresso Shot, a deck that's strong, punchy, and gets straight to the point. Here we are, the Wild Unknown. The Wild Unknown has never pulled any punches for me. Like, it is just direct as heck, and it like doesn't cut me any breaks. It's not kind, but it's truthful and it does what it's intended to do. Like, this is why I'm coming to the deck, and I know it's gonna be honest with me. This is the mini version. So I had the full-size version, which I've since passed along to my daughter, because when this little pocket version came out, I thought maybe this little deck will be a little bit kinder to me. And it is freaking adorable. The size of it, the colors, I love this deck. It is a deck that came in and really changed the way tarot was understood. And I love it for that. But I thought that this would be kinder to me because it was smaller and maybe it would seem different to me. Not at all. This deck lets me get away with absolutely nothing. And you know what? I truly appreciate that deck, or this deck, for that reason. I just love this deck so much. So the Espresso Shot is the Wild Unknown. The Drip, a deck that's simple, accessible, and gets the job done. The Super Lunaris, for me, is that deck that I go to when I just want a very clear, precise reading. I don't want to have to think too much about what's going on within the interpretation of the tarot. I don't want to have to really go into it. It's pretty clear RWS interpretations, but the imagery is just beautiful. It is extremely diverse. I really, and this 10 of Wands always gets me. I just love this. This deck to me just cannot be beat. I really think that this is a great deal. And now they have the Spark Edition, which is a lot easier on the budget. So it is accessible to everybody. It really is a fantastic deck. This is that deck that I always talk about. I didn't think I was gonna like it. I didn't like the images, and I got it in my hands and I was like, holy crap, I love this deck. But Super Lunaris, it is simple, accessible, and it always gets the job done. The Pour Over, a deck you need to take your time with, but is totally worth it. Let me explain a little bit about the history about the Pour Over. In the 1900s, a German woman named Emil August Medilda Benz, I hope I got her name pronunciation correct, was not satisfied with the taste of coffee through a percolator, and she didn't like that it always left grounds behind in her cup. So she used a can, she poked some holes in it, and she put a cloth in it, or a blotting paper, and she created the first pour over. So thank you very much, Ms. Benz, because I love pour over coffees as long as I have the time for it. As long as I have the time for it. So this deck right here is just one of the most amazing decks to me ever. This is the deck that really made me kind of fall in love with tarot. I mean, I was already loving it. However, when I got to this deck, it just was so relatable for me. And it was just like an eye-opening experience for me. This deck just explores that area between like ritual and spiritual guidance for me and healing, medicine. It is just beautiful, but you have to really establish a relationship with this deck. You have to get in deep, read the guidebook because it's vital to understanding this deck. And just like herbs and flowers and all these things grow, they take a point of time and nurturing and culturing and really being attentive to it. This deck requires that same type of attention. This is one of my all-time favorite decks. I absolutely love my Curandismo deck. This is amazing. I love the Herb Crafters. So if you want to take your time with the deck and really get to know it, this is the one, but I'm telling you, the rewards are amazing. I love this deck. The CAFE LATTE, a deck that's well received and highly palatable. Okay, first of all, the latte begins with the same base as espresso. So it starts with a single or double shot of espresso, and then it's combined with several ounces of steamed milk, and it creates a really rich and creamy beverage that is more subtle than your regular espresso drink because of the milk and the layers and the foaminess and all of that. So it really does lend to a more subtle taste of espresso when combined with this milk. This is the way home tarot for me. I have not had that deck this deck for all that long, but I can tell you that this deck stays right on the side. I love this little deck. This one's always handy for me. I love the interpretations of this deck because it lends an area for me to be creative within my thoughts and how I interpret the RWS, but it has the space and the grounding, that base of the RWS, which I completely understand and relate to. This deck is just beautiful, and I have really not seen any videos out there about this deck or talking about this deck where it hasn't been well received. Everybody that I've seen so far talks about this deck, you know, still, because it's a really fantastic deck. Now, I don't have her guidebook, but I have read it. You know, at Barnes & Noble, I go in and I read books while I'm enjoying coffee, of course. And I do like her book. It took me a couple of times of reading through it to really understand the personality that goes along with it. And I think I will be getting the book, but I've established a real great relationship with this deck without it. And I was kind of afraid that I would ruin it based on the book, but I love the way that she writes. She's so down to earth. I love that she cusses. I love that she uses songs within the book. I think it's fantastic. I love it. It's real, it's great. And this deck is just one of those well-received, and it's so highly palatable. The Cappuccino, a deck that's classic, sophisticated, and maybe a bit fussy. For me, that deck is the Mary L. Now, I don't know if you've heard my story about this deck or not, but when I got this deck, originally I ordered it from Amazon, and everything was stuck together. Every single card was stuck together. And I don't know if you can tell by the gilding here on the side or not, but you know, it's not it's not exactly pretty as far as the gilding is concerned, because everything was stuck together. I got 3 separate decks within like a week's period or a week and a half's period, and I had to go through and unstick each and every card. Everything was melted together on the card, so I had to create one solid deck from the best of the 3, and then put the other 2 back together and send them back. So from the absolute beginning of me holding this deck in my hands, it has been fussy. It has been like, no, you're going to do your work to get to, you know, play with me or to work with me. That it's just no other way. You're going to have to work for this. but it's classic and it's sophisticated. So I was willing to do the work. Now let me explain a little bit about a cappuccino. A cappuccino actually predates the espresso, and it's from Vienna. So in a cappuccino, the coffee and the milk were actually mixed until the coffee was the color of a monk's robe. Isn't that amazing? So it is a strong drink with a thick layer of microphone. And based on my experience with the Marielle, that is exactly what this is. It has to be right. It has to be the right moment to read it. It's a classic, it's beautiful, it's sophisticated, but for me, this deck has always been a bit fussy, and that's okay. I'm willing to do the work because it's worth it. The Mocha, a deck that's rich, indulgent, and a bit extra. The Mocha originated in the port of Mocha in Yemen, and it is created from a Mocha Java blend of coffee or espresso with a very heavy taste profile. But basically, a Mocha is hot chocolate with additional flavors and espresso. That's pretty much what a Mocha is. Now, for this particular choice, I'm going off the seasonal menu at my beautiful Peixoto coffee house and choosing their Chipotle Mocha. So their Chipotle Mocha is a smoky and spicy chipotle powder paired with bittersweet mocha syrup served with chocolate and your choice of milk. So the chocolate also, you can get it in white chocolate or dark chocolate. Me, of course, I chose my dark chocolate with my oat milk, and it was spicy and wonderful. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous blend. Other places it's usually referred to as a Mayan mocha, but this has always been one of my favorites. So for this one, I chose the Taro Avatara because, come on guys, if you are familiar with Frida, yeah, she led like this life, this abundant life. She was indulgent and yes, at times a bit extra. She was smoky, she was spicy, she was bittersweet. Like this deck is completely personified by that idea of a spicy chipotle Mayan type mocha. Oh my goodness, what other explanation can I find for this deck but this one? Oh my goodness, this deck is beautiful. The finish of the deck, the way that the cards feel, the art, and also even within the guidebook, oh my goodness, each and every card, there's a diary of Avatara that Gabby wrote. So each and every card features Gabby putting herself in Frida's place and writing in a diary to create a dialogue for each and every card. Amazing. This deck is so amazing. One of my treasures. The Cortado, a deck that's well balanced and objective. Okay, so first let's get to the meaning of Cortado. Cortado means cut in Spanish or Portuguese, and that's where the Cortado came from. But a Cortado is an espresso drink with a perfect balance of milk and espresso. So it's really uniquely smooth and still very silky and robust. So for me, that is the Brady Tarot, because this deck is another one. Oh my goodness. This deck is so well balanced. It is Thoth influenced, and the way that Emmy came up with the art, the way that she produced this deck, it's on these like wood carving cutouts or whatever, and then she painted them, and I mean, it was intense, the work that she had to do to create this deck. This is the second edition with the black borders, and I love this particular edition. I think it really just draws in some more depth into this deck. But this is all about the life cycles, and life cycles, you know, it's like that wheel that is just up and down, and sometimes it's brutal and sometimes it's just glorious. So now, even like with this one here, you could say that this is not so good for that little guy right there, but for him, oh my goodness, this is a glorious moment done with precision, right? So there is a balanced portion of this deck that just always leaves me longing more. It is not a deck that shies away from the truth, and everything about this deck is wonderful. Even the fact that it has this rose petal finish on it, it really kind of makes you take your time a little bit more with this deck and makes you just dig in a little bit further to me. It is robust and silky and smooth all the way around. The Espresso con Panna. Now I'm saying Espresso con Panna because that's the way that I recognize this particular drink. So this is a deck that puts you in your place, but with a bit of sweetness. So again, another Thoth-inspired deck. This is the Journey of the Sacred Bee. And yes, there's sweetness, of course. You have all these beautiful bees and this wonderful art and a lot of, well, every card has sacred geometry in it. It is just amazing, but it does put you in your place. And it does have these keywords on the bottom that keeps it real for you. So an espresso con panna is a shot of espresso with warm steamed microfoamed milk, and it is meant to be drank quickly. So if you look at this card and you just kind of look at it quickly, just see what you gather from it quickly. And it is truly, I mean, I don't read it quickly, but I do kind of like push myself into this deck when I'm reading with this deck and see where my eye focuses first, because there's a lot going on. But it is truthful and it's not harsh, which is one of the things that I love about this deck. And it does have this really fiery quality to it, which kind of makes me tend to use it more during the summertime. But this is just a beautiful, beautiful deck. The Chai Latte, a deck that is warm, cozy, and nurturing. I cannot think of one other deck. Well, I can think of one other deck, but this deck is just pure love. It is just like pure, like, give yourself a pat on the back, go take a shower, go do some yoga, go meditate. I mean, this deck is just beautiful. I love the colors. I love the bling. I love the art. I think it makes you feel comfortable within your own body and just accepting of all your imperfections. Like, your imperfections are your perfections when it comes to this deck. It is just an amazing, warm, cozy, and nurturing deck. If you want a self-love deck, this is the one. The Matcha Latte, a deck that's an acquired taste or a bit unconventional. Okay, this is the Tarot of the Drowning World. And you know what? This deck is not for everyone. It really isn't. But this is a newer deck to my collection. And this is another one of those decks that I'm like, do I really need that deck? Do I really resonate with it? Yes, because I kept coming back to it all the time. Chrissy Bentley uses this deck a lot. And she was so right on with her description of this deck. And every time that I would see her use this deck, I'm like, I need that deck. I really need that deck. But I completely understand how she describes, like, I have such an attraction to this deck and I'm not quite sure why, but I keep coming back to it and hoping to uncover something somewhere within this deck that really is pointed for me or really screams at me, but it's not that way. You really have to kind of focus in on this deck, but it is just beautiful. It is a wonderful deck. The artwork was created, these are pictures that were taken in a pool, and these people actually laid down and dressed, and all of these props are pretty much real. There's a couple of things in here there that are not, that are, I believe, that were placed into the picture. I don't know, what do you call that? I don't know the word for it, but, well, I do, it's just not here with me right now. But this deck is beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, the few times that I've worked with it so far, it's been like, oh my goodness, what the heck am I looking at? Why do I feel so drawn to it? So again, another one of those decks that I'm really kind of pouring myself into. But it is not one of those decks that everybody's going to be called to. And that's okay because I love it. I love how much detail went into making this deck. It is amazing. The hot chocolate, a deck that speaks to a younger version of yourself. Now, I know that most of the videos that I've seen really go back to either their teenage or their child years, but I don't know, maybe because I'm a little bit older, I'm not quite sure, but this is the one that called to me. This is the Story Medicine Tarot, the first edition. And for me, the first edition is the one, because the first edition is really talking about her younger self. That's my interpretation of it. This is in, now, so all of her 4 decks have a direction associated with the deck, and this is in the direction of the north, which is the earth balancing pentacles type of energy, where it's, you know, just grounding. Now, for me, in my younger self, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you know, 2 kids, trying to figure this all out with my boys, and it was not easy. And there was a lot of things that I needed to discover about myself, a lot of things that I needed to unravel and understand. And if I could have had this deck to kind of help me and walk me through this and give me some courage, it would have been amazing. So if you are at that point in your life where you're a young mom and trying to get through it, it does kind of go through the stages of life within the deck. However, for me, this deck is that really earthy type of grounding, let's understand this whole life thing type deck. And I do pull this deck for those times when I'm trying to really reach back to that time in my life where everything was just not completely answered and I was trying to figure things out. Man, I remember when I was 20 and 30 and I had all the answers, and then I would go home and I'd think, man, I don't have any of the answers. And now looking back, it's even more clear to me that even when I thought I had the answers, I really didn't have the answers. But this is it. This is my younger self deck. The Italian Soda, a deck that is fun, low-key, and not overly serious. If you have not seen this deck, you might want to take a look. This is the Moonlit Hermit Tarot. This deck is, it's different, and it's probably not going to call everybody, but this is definitely a deck that I am using when I just need to relax a little bit. You know, sometimes we may tend to get a little bit overly uptight or a little bit too serious. And this deck really kind of makes me laugh at it all. There is just something about this deck. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it doesn't let you take yourself too seriously either. Some of the faces that are on this deck are just hilarious, and some of the things that they did with some of the images that they placed on here, it is, I know we're looking at a lot of pips right now, so hold on, let me see if I can get to some of them that really just crack me up. Like the eyeballs are gone, and some of the ways that they have some of these faces is just, it's hilarious. On the, I believe it's the Devil card, where the, you know, the face is on the belly with the Marseille type decks, but the face that's on the belly is the one that really, really cracks me up. But this is a deck that kind of lightens things up and just makes me relax a little bit. Just looking at it right now, and some of the words that come out, I mean, they are serious, but just the way that it's all put together, it's one of those decks that I think everybody kind of needs with it. There it is, within their collection, just to try to chill out a little bit. The Herbal Tea, a deck that takes things down a notch or helps you unwind. Now for this, I chose a drink that was on Pechotto's seasonal menu, which is the Lavender Latte. So this is a house-made lavender syrup with espresso and your choice of milk, and topped with lavender flower dust. And for me, this is the Tarot of the Strange Antlers. This deck really does help me unwind. It helps me relax. And I think also because the guidebook is in French, it really has me going on intuition for this deck, and I love how gentle, how nurturing the images are, but it doesn't shy away like that shot of espresso. It doesn't shy away from the real things. Now, I know that I can use Google Translate for the guidebook. However, I've come to enjoy working with this deck however I see fit on that specific day, so much that I really do enjoy working with it without the guidebook, because I let my intuition speak to me on that particular day. And what I'm reading from it on one day, maybe I won't pick up from on the images the next. So this is really that beautiful deck that helps you take things down, helps you unwind, but yet gives you the adrenaline that you need in order to complete your reading and really get those messages. And look at how beautiful that is. Oh my goodness, I love this deck. This is my addition to this VR, and I chose the Americano. So let me explain the Americano drink to you. So it is said that after World War II, that the American soldiers that were stationed in Italy could not handle the Italian coffee. So they would ask for the coffee to be watered down so that they could tolerate the coffee. Hence the name Americano. That's the whole reasoning for it. So for me, the Outgrow Yourself was always that way of toning down the Thoth deck. From the moment that I ordered it, I didn't even have the Thoth deck when I ordered this deck, because I didn't feel like I was able to tolerate the Thoth. So for me, this deck is that version of another deck that maybe needs to be watered down in order for me to tolerate or understand the Thoth experience without having the actual images and words from the Thoth or using the guidebook for the Thoth. This one just lets me kind of wander into the Thoth, and I love this deck. It is so beautiful. It is so freeing. I love the words at the bottom and the little message at the top, the oracle. So you can use this as a tarot, you can use it as an oracle. And it is, and I hate to say that it's a watered down version of it, and some actually do think of it in that respect. But I enjoy that about this deck, because I like receiving the Thoth messages. It's a very spiritual deck to me. And again, I'm still working with the Thoth. I'm still trying to understand and learn the Thoth. However, this deck speaks to me in those ways that the Thoth has, but it's not as punchy as the Thoth. So for that, I really appreciate the Outgrow Yourself. So those are my coffee house decks. I'm gonna enjoy this Chipotle Mocha. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you later.